Welcome back to the little Horus drag racing video. This is part 10. I haven't posted for a while. The last video I posted was actually way back in March this year. That's just simply because I've been incredibly busy and life, real life jobs and everything else that have been kind of getting in the way of doing drag racing. But if you remember from my last video, last year, 2020, we blew the engine up at the end of the national finals last year. Which will be the third engine which I've actually blown up within 3 years. So yeah, it's starting to get a little bit frustrating. So obviously I sent the engine back to Daz and we got it rebuilt, ready for our 2021 season. Because of COVID, etc., we were slightly unsure when the season was going to start, but we did make it to our first event, which was Summer Nationals this year. So I'll talk about that and show you some videos of what happened there. If you need to catch up on procedures and what's been going on with the race car, I'll put a link in the description below of the last video that we did. And in this video I'll talk about an upgrade which I promised in the last video, which I'm yet to show you. So I'll show you that, show you where we got to. We did enter 2 events this year, which was Summer Nationals and Bug Jam. And if you're a bettor, you might want to bet and try and guess what happened with the car, whether or not we did manage to actually get a personal best, or whether or not everything came crashing down around us like it usually does. But with that in mind, we'll dive into the video, and here's the update and see how we got on. So with drag racing, there's always a good, bad and ugly. So let's start with the good. In the last video, I promised a cool new upgrade to the car, and this is it. It's a new gauge holder that my friend Ash Waring made. I was having trouble seeing all the gauges when I was racing, as they were all mounted inside the glove box, and I needed to move them to a more accessible place where I could see them better. I tried finding something on the internet, but I couldn't find anything that would suit. So in the end, I just decided what would be better was to basically just make my own. As usual, it started in the usual way by making a template out of paper, followed by one from card. And then once I was happy with the design, I gave it to Ash, who 3D printed it for me. And I think the result makes it look absolutely awesome. Ash has some future plans for these, and he possibly might even start manufacturing them, possibly even from like one-piece billet aluminium. And I think they would look cool in any car if he does actually make them. But yeah, there you go. That's one of my only upgrades, is this now new 3D printed gauge holder. So with everything had been checked and double checked, the engine had been set up, and we were ready for the first race meeting of the year, which was the Summer Nationals over at Santa Pod. Again, I was ready to smash my personal best of a 12.3 with the car, and I was super happy with everything and convinced that all the work that Daz had done was faultless. Similar to my last race meeting in September last year, the plan was the same: to make a single pass, then start heading boost. But yes, guess what? It wasn't to be. We went to do our first run, but was turned back by the marshals, as we developed an oil leak from the oil pump. We went back to the pits and removed the pump to try and fix the leak, but no matter what we did, we couldn't stop it from leaking. We tried sealants, refitting the pump, cleaning the face, everything we did, it still leaked from the pump. So we decided that it needed a little bit of further investigation. So yet again, we had to retire the car. So what I decided to do was take it back to this man, Daz Chandler, over at DC's Hot Rod Shop, so we could investigate why we couldn't stop the pump from leaking. As always, Dad was incredibly helpful, and we soon had the car up on the ramps. After removing the pump, Daz discovered that there was a very small channel the width of a human hair inside the pump housing, and the oil was channeling itself through this and exiting the pump cover at the top. We managed to fix it by drilling and tapping the oil galley and diverting the oil flow. With little Horus all fixed again, the next event was the legendary bug jam. I decided that before we compete, it would be a good idea to get the car back on the dyno for a retune and check everything over. The car was booked in at Mac VW, where the car was dyno previously, but unfortunately Steph was having a few problems, so instead I took the car over to RE Performance in my hometown. The plan was simple: to double check everything, make sure the car was safe to run, and if it was so, we was going to turn the boost up to 14 psi and really get some good numbers. We made it to Bug Jam and we had a really great weekend, but there was one thing missing. Yet again, the drag gods weren't smiling on us, and something broke on the dyno, and it broke pretty big. Keep going. Keep going. Sorry, Chris. Keep going. Sorry, Chris. Now, my first thought was that we'd bent some push rods, as when we was turning it over by hand, 1 and 3 weren't moving. I checked, and apart from one, all the push rods seemed okay. My next thought was that maybe we'd snapped a camshaft, and I was really hoping that we hadn't done too much damage to the damage, and the engine could possibly be saved. I took the engine out, hoping for minimal damage, but what I saw was a lot worse than I expected. On closer inspection, it seemed that something had let go inside the case, possibly a rod. Whatever had happened, it had done a huge amount of damage. Some had snapped and just gone to town on everything, and as you can see from the pictures, the case itself is split and broke. A rod had obviously hit the top of it, so it must have also damaged the crank, the cam, everything, and I'm guessing that all the internal components inside the case are nothing more than scrap now. So Daz had kindly stripped the engine back for me, and we think we may have found the fault. The oil pump drive had snapped. Now, we're not 100% sure whether or not this happened first, which caused the lack of oil flow and constantly added to the rod failure. It's almost impossible to tell. But we have heard of 3 oil pumps just recently, all from Volkswagen Heritage, that have failed. So it seems like bad luck has struck again, and a £50 part seems to have caused a huge amount of damage within the engine. So the question is, what am I going to do next? And the answer is, I don't really know. I've got a couple of options open to me. I can try and look at rebuilding the engine again. Obviously I'll need a new engine case, crank, cam, set of rods, everything that comes with it. So I can possibly attempt to race next year in 2022 season. My other option is to look at something completely different, maybe even drop the car back down into Sportsman, maybe just put like a 1600 twin port in it, which might end up being something that I do in the interim period, because the problem is, of course, I've had so much bad luck with the car, I can't just keep throwing money at it, or else I'll end up either homeless or divorced, or possibly both. So I need to really now have a long sit down and think about what my next move is going to be. I'm hoping that at some point we will see the car racing in 2022, whether it be with a 1600 motor that I've just borrowed out of the convertible over there and put a pair of carbs on it, and we might be able to have a little bit of fun that way. I might be able to save up some money and rebuild the race engine. Or there is a third option that's possibly open to me, which is maybe even possibly think about selling the CB Performance Turbo kit, putting some money to one side, and then looking at maybe upgrading to something in the far future that's even bigger, so I could potentially sell some of the parts that I've got now and go and maybe try and advance into something even a little bit bigger. But it's tricky at the moment because I've had such bad luck and I'm a bit down, as you can possibly imagine, about spending money and rebuilding the race car, because like I say, eventually I'll find myself homeless if I carry on blowing up engines at the rate of 3 every 18 months. So yeah, so that's the ugly part of this video, is really I don't know what the future now holds for the race car. The race car's just sat here in the garage. It's got no engine in it. I haven't got an engine for it. I haven't really got the money to rebuild another engine. I can sell some stuff. I can do a little bit of saving. Fingers crossed something will happen. Like I said, I'm not a defeatist. I don't want this to be the end of little Horus. No matter what happens, this car will be racing next year, be it with a 1600 twin port 40 horsepower motor in it, and then maybe the year after or the year after that we might go bigger again. I might even put the CB Performance Turbo system on a little 1600 and see what happens. But I'm not a defeatist. I just need to sort of now have a little look at where we need to go with the race car. Pray to the drag gods that hopefully we can get a little bit of luck, and maybe next year we will see it on the race track, and it's either going to have a 1600 in it, maybe a rebuilt 2276, or maybe something completely different. So who knows? I guess you'll just have to stay tuned. Right, that's it for part 10. Stay tuned for part 11. Hopefully I won't leave it as long this time when I post a video. So hopefully in part 11 we'll find out what I'm doing with the race car and what the future holds. I hope everyone stays safe. As always, you can follow us on Instagram at Little Horus Drag Racing. And as always, I will see you by the racetrack.